Hey everybody, welcome, and thank you for listening to this episode of Marriage Therapy Radio. My name is Zach Brittle. I'm here today with Matthew and Joanna Raabsmith. We're talking about sexual addiction and the recovery from that, what it's like for couples who go through this process, not just of grappling with the addiction itself, but what it means to kind of pave your way back. I think there are going to be a lot of people listening for whom this is a really important topic. And the good news is that they have an opportunity. You can work with them in the context of their coaching practice. They have a blog. They've written a book. But I was more interested to hear about how they did it personally together. And I get to learn a lot from both of them. And I think you will too. Before we get to the interview, I just want to raise a flag about one thing that's coming up for me in November. I'm going to be teaching the Relational Life Therapy Boot Camp in Philadelphia on November 8th and 9th. If you're in the area or if you want to travel to come spend 2 days working through the principles and practices of relational life therapy, try and get back on the path to fierce intimacy, I'd love to have you. Yeah, just shoot me a note. Write me at info@marriagetherapyradio.com and I will get you some information about that. I would love to have you join me. It's a great event. It was really powerful for Rebecca and I. Any of you who might be in Northern Virginia or Maryland or Delaware or South Jersey or the Philadelphia area, come out, come see me. I'd love to meet you and help you work through some of this. But for now, I want to talk to Matthew and Joanna Raabsmith about the process of sexual addiction and recovery, hear a little bit about their story. They are speaking my language when they talk about purpose, passion, and play. Alliteration, as you know, is my jam. I just finished an episode a couple of weeks ago around things that start with P. So there are plenty of those in this episode. Oh, plenty starts with P. This is a very cool conversation. Stick around. You guys had some sort of situation this morning? Some kind of family thing, maybe? Everything okay?
Yeah, no, everything's good. Our kids started a new school and it's across town. And we had scheduled this
before they started the new school. And so we're like, oh, it's going to be a little bit tight. I think we can make it, but just in case traffic is crazy, we wanted you to have a heads up kind of what was going on.
Yeah. This is the first time in 50 years, 45 years that I'm not going back to school. I just emptied, literally yesterday, I put my youngest on a plane for her gap year. I know, it's crazy. Everybody's like back to school energy, and I go, I don't.
You're like, I'm so chill.
When did school start? What is that about?
That's awesome.
It is. It's a little jarring, to be honest. So, where do you guys live?
You get used to this.
We're in Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
And so, and we've got a 9, 8, and 6-year-old. And so definitely.
So we're just getting used to the kid school rhythms in some ways.
Yeah.
So we'll be there for a while.
Yeah.
Would you say 9, 8, 6?
9, 8, 6. So 4th, 3rd, and 1st grade.
I have this theory that 4th grade is the beginning of consciousness. Think about it. If I ask you guys right now to tell me about your childhood, I think you would locate yourself at about 4th grade. I do, and you sort of go, oh, this is what it was like for me to be a kid. You sort of begin to figure out who you are. You sort of begin to figure out what independence is about. You sort of kind of, I don't know. So you're coming right into it. Your kids are starting to figure.
Important years.
So what you're telling us is they haven't remembered anything before this.
Don't
so
screw
now
it up
we can,
now.
Well, it's not the beginning of memory. It's the beginning of consciousness, right?
I love it.
Well, listen. Thanks for coming on to Marriage Therapy Radio. I'm delighted to get to talk to you. You seem like you have a pretty cool angle on whatever you guys have been through. Can you just tell me for a second, what's your shtick? What's the elevator speech when it comes to getting to know the Raabsmiths?
Yeah. I mean, I think for us, it's always been about, we wanted a really great marriage. We like each other. We didn't always like each other. We didn't like each other when we first started. But we like each other a lot now. Sex addiction, pornography, betrayal really wrecked that. And we were pretty sure we were going to lose it. I think what we realized is we didn't lose it. We went through some really, really challenging seasons and some hard times, and it was a long journey back. But what we have now on the other side, actually better than what we had before. And part of it is I think we wanted a great marriage. We just didn't know how to do it. Nobody taught us, nobody showed us. Yeah. What I saw wasn't great. And so there was a lot of learning to do. But I think our hope is always that like you can actually have something really special. Like you can like your marriage, you can like your relationship, especially if you're willing to work at it. And so
that's interesting. When you say I didn't see anything, do you mean like your family of origin? Like is that what you're talking about when you say I didn't?
Yeah. Really my family was just super chaotic. I mean, it's interesting. My parents are still married. They've been married for close to 50 years. But I mean, just like toxic and, really chaotic, verbally just like screaming and yelling and just, all of the things that we know don't work. They do. Somehow they've survived. I think they joke that they basically said they'd never get divorced, and that's what kind of keeps them together. And it kind of feels like that. It just didn't help a lot when we got married, and I'd already been divorced once. And now I'm going into a second marriage, and I'm like, I don't want this one to die, but I'm killing it all over again. And I don't want to kill it. Like I didn't wake up going like, I'd like my marriage to suck. It was floundering. And so I think that realization that like, if I and we don't figure out how to do this, we're going to lose the thing we care about. Everything we dreamed of will be gone. And so,
you're an interesting case study in this way, which is when clients come into my office and they have, something. They have an addiction, they have an affair, they have sex, whatever it is. They're caught up in the pain of it or whatever. And then they start to imagine like, can we find our way? I go, well, can you imagine becoming like motivational speakers or teachers on the other side of this thing? People who actually leverage this pain and the recovery in order to help other people. And that seems like you kind of cracked the code somehow. Do you know how you did that? Like, did you have a moment where you said, hey, we're gonna, and I don't imagine it was the first thought you had, but I guess I want to hear a little bit about how you found yourself here.
Yeah, it was a little bit of we knew what we wanted from the beginning, but like Matthew said, we didn't have the tools, we didn't know how to do it, and then we tried some things that did help, but didn't get us all the way there. And then we realized why, because there was something hiding in the corners that I didn't know about, betrayal. And we dove into betrayal recovery and we got stable. And for a while, I think we thought stable was the best we could ever hope for. But that was pretty depressing. Like we weren't really happy about that. And we did start helping other couples, even in that place. And we went to a training by a very well-known organization in this field on healing couples. And they showed us, this is the couples roadmap. And it was a mess. It was like this island with this, like, you're looking for the treasure and the addict goes this way and the partner goes this way and the couple. And I was like, where are you ending up? This is really depressing, right? But it kind of mirrors our journey. And it was kind of in that moment we're like, no, this is not it. This is not the end. Not settling. And so we kept kind of fighting to figure out like what is on the other side, and it better be something good if we're going to put all this work into it. And so just piecing together the resources that we needed is really what happened. And then when I was working with a colleague, Dan Drake, he drew this visual up. So I'm kind of comparing it to this crazy chaotic map we saw before. This is kind of what I'm thinking about, like getting to intimacy after betrayal, this pyramid, kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, honesty, safety, trust, vulnerability, intimacy. And like, I was like, that's it. That's exactly what it is. And so we started fleshing that out, and it really was a reflection of our journey and all the couples we'd work with, like what actually works, what gets you there. And in that intimacy stage, we talk a lot about purpose, passion, and play. And that's 100%, right? Like that purpose that we found in our story and using it to help other people has been such a big part of our thriving intimacy that we experience now.
And I think the cracking the code though was accepting our reality. I think for a long time what we imagined like healing would be is like I stopped doing what I was doing, right? Like I stopped all this crazy stuff. I stopped lying. I stopped hiding. I stopped my addiction, right? I started showing up in the relationship more reliable, and that would be it. And we did that, like I said, and that kind of allowed us to survive and heal and kind of move forward. I had wanted no way, shape, or form for our story to be known. I did not want to be the porn guy. I didn't want to be the sex addict. Right? I didn't want to be the pervert that I thought everybody would see me as, or the betrayer. Like it was all about this, like, I didn't want our story to be our story. I wanted our story to be something different. And I think for us, what shifted everything is when I realized, like, no, this is our story.
Yeah.
But it's also our story that's still being written. And so I think I started to realize, like, as I started to accept our story, I think as we started to accept, like, this is our story and this is the only story we get to tell. And I remember the first time we kind of shared publicly with a group of like friends and colleagues, and they were like, you got to tell this story to everybody. And we were like, no, that's the opposite of what we want to do. But it was funny.
Get through it and never speak of it again.
Yeah.
Was like, the more we talked, the more we shared, the more open we were with people, the more open we were with our story, the more we actually got to that purpose. We found that purpose. And so I think that was the biggest tipping point, was that kind of not just acceptance of like, oh, this happened, but like, no, this is our story and that's okay. Because we have a great marriage beyond it. And it doesn't mean anything about us that's like, that speaks negative. It is what it is. And knowing it and telling it is really what has helped us move forward.
This always happens. I get ready for these interviews and I have like a series of questions that I want to ask and kind of tee it up. And then you guys start talking. I'm like, wait, but now I want to know about that. Well, hold on, tell me about that. And so I'm looking at my little sheet and I'm like, forget it. I don't need the answer to this one. But
That's awesome.
So Matthew, what's it like being the porn guy? Like the thing you didn't want to be, and you have like you rejected, and you said, I don't want to be this guy. Like what have you found? What have you learned? What have you come to terms with that feels, I don't know, as like it's this is what I want to know. Like you used the phrase, and so now that you become the thing you didn't want to become, what is that like for you?
Yeah, it is this weird paradox where I am still afraid. I still fear sometimes what people think of me, right? What they imagine, what goes on in their head. I mean, I'm a dad now, right? So I think about like, what would other parents that we hang out with think of me, right? If they knew about me, and they don't have to look very hard. They can Google our name and find our story, find that out. And so there's still a fear. I think that's a very natural human thing. But I think part of it is like knowing it doesn't have control over me anymore. I think when I found freedom from my addiction, like I was engaged with sex addiction and pornography to various forms for over 2 decades of my life, the majority of my life. I never imagined a life where I wouldn't like obsessively think about it. It wouldn't kind of control me. 15 years in, to recovery and this journey, like, I don't think about it anymore. It doesn't control me. And so I'm more comfortable talking about it because it doesn't control me. I think if it was like still this animal in the room that was like ever present, it'd be really hard to talk about. I'd be really scared. But knowing that like it's there, I know that those habits and even that neural pathway in my brain is still there, but I know what it's like to be free of it. It's totally different. So there's this weird paradox of like terrified what people will think, but also like comfortable just in my own skin. It is my story. And I think I've also understood more as I started to tell my story. I understood how I got there. For a long time, what I understood my story to be was I was a bad person because I was doing these things. As I've learned more about my story, more about trauma, more about development, I realized I was a kid who had no way of knowing how to deal with the huge emotions and realities he was going through. And I found an outlet. It was a destructive outlet. It was a dangerous outlet. It was a, addiction-inducing outlet. But I found an outlet for that. And I went to it. And I went to it over and over and over until it was all I knew what to do. And even though I knew I hated it, I still did it. What the blessing that I got to receive is I had good people in my life that showed me there were other ways of dealing with it. There were other ways of my pain. There was other ways of dealing with my story. And I'm really lucky because I know there's people out there that don't have that in their life. They don't have another vision. But as I've begun to understand that part of my past, it's easier to talk about, it's easier to own, it's easier to name. And probably the hardest thing for me to name wasn't just the addiction, but truly the hardest thing for me was naming what it did to Joanna. That was the part that probably took me the longest. I really didn't want to own what it did to our marriage, what it did to her. And that was the other thing that I think kind of kept us locked up for so long was I wanted to be the guy who got over porn, right? I wanted to be the guy who was, beyond it. I didn't want to accept and what I did really hurt this person and really hurt our chances at a better relationship. And it wasn't until even I accepted that I was the betraying spouse, right? That I was, there's a term that they use, it's called the infidel, right? It sounds awful, right? That I didn't want to imagine that was a role I played in our relationship, but it wasn't until I kind of accepted, actually was. I was the infidel. I was the person who didn't show up with fidelity and commitment to our relationship. But once I did, it was okay. The cool part was Joanna knew this. It wasn't like this was new information to Joanna, and she accepted me. She said, I know this about you. I know this is what you've done. I still want a future with you. That was, I think, a part of the big second piece was not just my own addiction, but really what it had meant for us.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I'm sitting here and I almost want to have a debate with you about, 15 years ago, pornography was really different than it is now. In terms of its sort of its acceptability and it's almost mainstream these days. And I think I'm in recovery from alcoholism, and every time I talk about my recovery, most people I talk to go, "Oh yeah, oh my God, you're so lucky. I'm so grateful. This thing has so much energy over me." Blah 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 blah. But I don't really want to have that debate. I am interested in the thing that you're describing because, the thing that matters about pornography or alcohol or anything isn't the thing. It's what it does to the relationship. And as you go, because some people are like, "Oh, I use porn all the time. Doesn't matter. Who cares? It's not a thing. It doesn't affect my relationship. It's just a whatever." That's not you, and that's not a lot of people who are listening. But so here we are, and you have this issue in your life, and it's taking over, and it's making it hard for you to relate. And Joanna, you have this impact on you. And I'm less concerned perhaps about pornography than the relational part of it, but how do you understand it for yourself? How did you make sense of it as you guys started to work through the process of recovery? If you're the infidel, or if the infidel is on the one side of the equation, is there a label for the other side?
There is the betrayed partner.
Yeah.
And
it's not quite as clever, but
God, it's not. But yeah, that's really as there was not a lot of resources at the time when we went through recovery as there are now. And so, but I knew I needed some level of healing because of the pain I was experiencing. And it took me a while to figure out what exactly was going on for me. But I finally found the label. It's betrayal trauma. And so many partners who experience this in relationship, the hardest part, kind of like you said, right? Yes, porn's there, it's a thing, but the hardest part relationally is the betrayal, the hiding, the lying, the deception. I had no idea what was going on and the level and the extent of what was going on in our relationship. And so when I found out in a split second, in a moment, it felt like my entire world came crashing down around me because what I thought was real, what I thought was true about us, about the life we were building, about our shared goals and values, it was all of that was gone all of a sudden. I had no idea if it could be rebuilt. And so I was reeling. I was trying to figure out, I thought we had this beautiful love story of how we met and got together. It was kind of a whirlwind romance. And I was it was so special. All of a sudden, it lost this specialness, right? That story of us, it held no meaning anymore for me. And so there was so much pain around that. And like I said, I didn't know if I was going to ever get that back again. And so there's this really weird kind of waiting period because there's a lot of it depended on Matthew and what he decided to do. Is he going to become honest? Is he going to take responsibility? Is he going to be safe in our relationship and begin honoring the commitments he originally made to us? And I just didn't know that. And so there was a big kind of, it felt like this chasm between us right away and for a long time while we kind of dove into that recovery journey. And in that healing process, I think what was so special and that I didn't expect is that we got to kind of reclaim those special pieces about us, reclaim our story of us. It's different now that we have like additional insights and understandings of ourselves and who we are and who we were at that time. But it's special in a new way.
Yeah. I want to test a theory with you for a second because I have this belief that in my office, in my counseling practice, that when somebody comes in here, a couple comes in here and there's been a betrayal, and it's very easy to look at the infidel and say, oh my gosh, yeah, you did this and that's a thing and you got to repent, you got to recover and da-da-da. I also think that, I've never seen a single couple recover when the betrayed partner, when the harmed partner didn't say, I'm a part of this. I have a role here and including this. Do you buy that theory? Did you have that experience? What is that for you? Did you look at it too and go, I'm a part of this equation that facilitated this thing?
Yeah, like here's how we usually describe it. They are a part of the journey forward. I think where we will probably say though, like what's interesting with betrayal, like Joanna and I used to argue about certain things. And one of the things we would argue was about sex, right? We would argue whether we were going to have sex or like whether bids were being met. But the difficulty was Joanna and arguing meant like we were doing things, right? Both triggered, right? Getting angry, getting critical. And so we could look at that and we could say like, yeah, okay, those were some shared arguments. The problem was, right, Joanna was having that argument and she didn't have all the information. Like she didn't know that I would come home ashamed of acting out, and we were like newlyweds, and so she would like come and like want to kiss on me and hug and right, be intimate, and I would be like no, and she'd be like, what's wrong? Did I do something wrong? And I would be like, I'm stressed out with work, you're pressuring me, you're needy, right? I would want to kind of blame her, but what was really happening behind the scenes was the shame of what I was doing and the secret that I was keeping was making me want to kind of pull away from that intimacy. She had no idea, right? So she was a part of our relational experience, but not a part of the betrayal.
And so we look at the power balance. When somebody is hiding information, there's a power imbalance. They're holding the power in the relationship. So there can never be a fair fight in a way. When we work with couples and normal couples, right? Absolutely. When we look at we call them pain cycles, when they get into their right cycle of fighting and they both take mutual responsibility. But if there's a power imbalance, you can't take mutual responsibility until it's been rebalanced. And so that's why that honesty layer is so important. And so especially with a lot of the couples we work with who experience sex addiction, this acting out part of their life, it happened long before they even met their partner. Those cycles were ingrained and they brought that into the relationship without that other person having knowledge. So they didn't even have full power to say yes to the relationship from the very beginning. And so that can be a little bit different than, again, when both come in with full knowledge, full information of the other person, what's going on, and making decisions from that place.
And we'll sometimes also see some differences in cases of affairs. So there can be situations where someone doesn't bring in like a sexual addiction, right? Kind of a past history where yes, maybe relationally over time, there are some kind of breakdowns relationally. And then this person chooses to move into an affair behavior. And those you would treat a little differently. You would have different conversations about the relational breakdowns. The thing with sexual addiction and what makes it actually different than typically substance addictions is because it is so private, you have way less of this kind of co-addict or codependency because the partner doesn't know that it's going on. So they're not kind of facilitating it and like kind of activated in it. It really is this kind of, Omar Winwala calls it the secret sexual basement. It's this part of my life that no one knows. Joanna asked me point blank when we were dating, like, I know guys, I know people. Do you use pornography? Are you struggling? And I just flat out lied to her. I was like, no, I'm a good guy. That's not my thing. I kind of dabbled in the past, but I know that's not good, right? I gave her this absolute baloney story. And because of our relationship at the time, she trusted me, and she was like, okay, I trust you, right? And it really was when things started to break down. She started asking hard questions. She started being like, why aren't we having more sex, right? Why isn't our relationship better? What's going on? And every time I would just lie, I would gaslight, I would make it about her. And it wasn't until everything came out that her story started making sense. Like one of the journeys for Joanna was she had to go back through the years of our marriage that I was in addiction and go, oh, now it makes sense. Now I understand why we could be so happy one minute and so apart the next, and it wouldn't kind of compute for me.
Yeah, that's intriguing to me. I don't know, maybe it's worth hearing a little bit more about the nuances between an affair situation and an addiction situation. I think when it comes to a affair situation, those things never happen in a vacuum. It's kind of like you described, like the relationship itself might have been falling down. And the betrayed partner, the way I talk about it, if you're familiar with John Gottman's work, is that usually when there's an affair, you can always trace it back to the bid and turning system being broken. So like people making bids, and then there's like a failure of turning toward those bids in meaningful ways. And that's the origin story usually, but it sounds like there's a little bit of a different perspective when it comes to what you guys are describing.
Yeah. There's a therapist, Dave Carter. He actually describes there's different types of affairs as well. And then there's sex addiction that kind of falls outside of affairs completely, exactly because of what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Kind of typical affairs. One couple we worked with, the husband struggled with depression and basically abandoned the relationship for almost 2 decades. And then eventually the wife had an affair, right? And so you're like, so
she looks like the bad guy. Yeah.
Exactly. And so going like, wait, we have to look at this full picture. A lot of the couples we work with where it's more that sexual addiction case and it's been going on the whole time, their relationship looks amazing. Like from the outside, everyone's like, they had the relationship we thought everyone else wanted. The wife will even say like, I thought our relationship was great. Even the husband will say, yeah, it was great. I just had this other thing I couldn't stop. I couldn't control. And so it's very much less of, that relational component than drove it, and more of that true kind of like addicted nature, this compulsion that was already there before the relationship.
Yeah. I think you described early on in your process when you were trying to kind of make sense of this, what sometimes I'll call the flight to health. So you guys went to so there's fight or flight, which is a trauma response, and then some people will flee to health. So you guys went and you stabilized this ship. You got it stabilized. You found your map. You got it all figured out. But that was just kind of phase one. How do you encourage, invite, solicit the beyond that, beyond stability? Like what has to happen next? How do you tee that up? How did you not how do you tee it up for other people? How did you do that for yourselves?
Yeah. I mean, after that stage, what we knew was there had to be the restoration of trust, because that was what was destroyed. Like Joanna said, like this trust that we had with each other, the trust that she had put in me, that we had built through a lot of good interactions, it was gone, because if I could lie about this, if I could do this much hiding, right? What else was I hiding? One of the things that Joanna mentioned, she said, one of the things that hurt a lot is you lied about things that weren't sex related. We had a TV show that we watched together, Doctor Who, and I lied to her about watching all the episodes when she was at school, and she's like, that really hurt, right? That hurt because that was something we shared together, right? And if you're gonna lie about sex and Doctor Who and food you eat, how do I trust that anything that you say is real? And so that healing has to come first. And one of the things we see is we wanted to kind of maybe heal the relationship, but we knew we can't do that with where we're at. But once we heal ourselves, once we stabilize, there still has to be the healing of the rupture. And that really did look like, for me, getting honest about things that I didn't wasn't honest about. I mean, I would lie about everything. I would lie about anything that I thought would upset another person. Because I wanted to avoid conflict at all costs. And so part of it was like, I had to learn how to do that. I'd had 30 years of training of hiding and deceiving, manipulating. It was like, okay, I'm going to tell you that I had 2 peanut butter cups today. And I wouldn't normally tell you that because I'd be ashamed of what it maybe looks like. Like maybe I'm unhealthy and I'm scared to tell you this, but I'm going to let you know this, right? And I'm going to let it be a conversation. And what was amazing is Joanna's response was usually like, okay, thank you for letting me know. Like this whole fear that I had that like, she's going to leave me if she finds out I had the last ice cream, right? Was like, no, she's not, right? We're going to talk about it and move on. And so that was a huge part of our restoration, was that kind of learning to be honest in all things, learning to be more transparent, more proactive in the relationship. And then ultimately showing that I knew how to handle the emotions I had spent a lifetime trying to avoid. And that was probably the piece that was most important for Joanna, was when things got hard, is Matthew going to bolt, right? Is he going to run? And maybe he's not going to run to porn anymore, right? But maybe he's going to run to something else. Maybe he's going to run to another form of escape. And I had to figure that out too. Like I knew my pattern, which was that when I'm scared, I hide. And when I hide, I feel ashamed. And when I feel ashamed, I usually try to go numb out. And that was what would happen over and over and over. And so I had to recognize, well, when that shame comes up, am I going to deal with the shame? Am I going to address it myself? Am I going to believe in myself something different? And then that's going to let me show up differently. And that takes time. It takes actually a lot of time. I mean, people want it to be instantaneous. It's just so that really was that journey.
Yeah, it's not instantaneous, and it's not actually what it is. Like when I talk about my own recovery, I usually tell people like quitting alcohol was actually pretty easy, which is not true for everybody. And I don't mean to diminish that struggle at all for people, but like I decided one day to stop drinking and I just stopped. But then I very quickly found out that I had other recovery work to do around anger and resentment, and that's been very hard. So, but you said something at the top that I'm actually intrigued by, and it's something I try to sell to clients too, which is this idea of the thing we have now is better than the thing we had before. Like there's this moment where the two of you stood up in front of a bunch of people and you said, the guy said, "Do you?" And you said, "I do." And you said, "How about you? Do you?" And you said, "I do." And then somewhere along the way you said, "I'm not sure I do," or maybe I don't, or I don't know if I do actually. And then you said, "No, wait, I actually really do." And that second one, I think, is more valuable, more powerful than the first one, particularly if it's in the light of day. So here you are, you're kind of in the second part, you're in the second "I do" period. Now what are you working on? What is it? What is what's the work now? If it's not, I mean, I get the work of recovery is daily and it's ongoing and you've got your message and it's outbound and you're trying to help other people, but inside, like just inside your house, your home, your heart, what are you guys doing now?
Yeah. I think we're living into the new us, and it's really fun. We struggled to figure out who we were in the beginning because there was something there we didn't know about. And so bringing it into the light of day gave us the power to really decide who we want to be. And so we even have little nicknames for our relationship, the Raabsmith team, the super couple, right? And so we have this understanding of our identity together, of like who we are together. And so it's living that out every day in a moment to moment daily basis, whether we're parenting, whether we're seeing clients together, whether we're working on our own relationship. And we're not always that couple. Sometimes we slip back into the old couple that we don't want to be. Those moments happen too. But what's so exciting is we know that that's not really who we are. And we have the tools because of the work that we've done, the recovery that we've done, to get out of that place and back into being who we want to be.
And I think one of the things the work looks like now is inviting other people in the journey with us, and like people that challenge us, situations that challenge us. So like we kind of had a solo practice for a while. We decided to bring on others because we wanted to be able to expand our work. It's hard. We figure like it's hard to be a boss. You have responsibilities and you have people to work for you and they challenge you. Kind of the same thing with parents. I mean, we wanted kids so bad. But as soon as I became a parent, it hit me like, oh crap, I can't do what happened to me. I've got to do something different. And taking on kids has been a challenge. And we talk a lot about emotions with our kids. We talk a lot about like, even though we don't talk specifically because of their ages about like what we went through, we talk a lot about relationships and they're picking it up and they push us. Like when our daughter was like 5 years old, Joanna and I were having one of those like,
she was like 3.
Like 1.0 moments. We were like going at each other. And I literally looked at Joanna and I said, Joanna, you need to grow up. And my daughter looked at me and says, Daddy, it sounds like you need to grow up. And I was like, wham, like, and it was that, this was like in recovery and I'm like giving talks about how to be a healthy person. And my child is reminding me, you still have a lot to learn. And so, but that's part of the fun. I think part of the fun is inviting that honesty and that reflection and that feedback and going, yeah, I do. I still do need to grow up. I still act like a child. I still act like I don't know what healthy relationships take. And I love that there's people in my life that will call that out in me, invite me to a different place, because whatever is next tends to be better if you're doing the work. And so that's the work. Like, we don't feel like we're in crisis, but we still work a lot on our marriage and our life because it gets better when you do the work.
Yeah. You're speaking my language a little bit earlier. I love alliteration. You talked about purpose, passion, and play. I just recorded, mostly I'm recording interviews with couples. By the way, thank you for sharing your story with us. A couple of episodes ago, I did a episode just all by myself, and I just went through a whole list of P words that I wanted to talk about. So I talked about parenting, I talked about politics, I talked about polyamory, I talked about a bunch of different stuff. But when it comes to purpose, passion, and play, tell me about what you guys are doing. Like, not so much inside your business or your work, but what do you guys play at as a family or as a couple? What's your jam?
We love play.
We went to, so this summer, our business went online because of COVID. And that ended up being this great blessing because it allowed us to realize we can be anywhere in the world. And so we had this dream to be out of the country for a while. And so we kind of made a, not last minute, but a kind of fairly like rash decision to let's just go to Europe for 2 months. And so as soon as the day school got out, we packed up our kids, right? We got them on the plane. We spent 2 months in Europe and we worked late hours because of the time change. But every day we went somewhere new with our kids. We were, beer gardens and traveling all across, Europe and expanding. We were hiking but it was about just like doing things that we didn't think were possible. Like, I grew up never with a vision that like, that's something you can do. And it was hard, but I think part of play is like, you got to push yourself. You got to challenge. Like, play doesn't just happen easily. You usually have to be,
especially as adults, right? I think most adults we've worked play out of our life completely. And so, but it's so crucial to thriving.
Well, it's right there in the sentence you just said. We've worked play.
Exactly. 100%. Exactly. Yeah. And so going, we're going to have to fight to get play back in. And having kids is a nice wake up call of like, okay, this is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. Can I disconnect from all the responsibilities, the to-dos, and just be present in this moment? And so love creating moments together and as a family where it's easy to be fully present. And so being outside, doing activities, new adventures, things that are exciting, those are things that really help us get into that kind of play mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another P word too, presence. So,
Yep.
Very cool. So I can imagine people listening and they want to learn more about what you guys are up to and how to maybe work with you. Where do we tell them to go? What do you want people to know about how you can be of support?
Yeah. The easiest way to find us is Raabsmithteam.com. We do a lot of different things. We coach, we support, we write a blog every week on a lot of the kind of things that we encounter with our clients, just concepts and ideas that we've either learned in our own journey. I think what's special about our team is we're all couples who help couples. So everybody who on our team are couples, and they've all been through what our couples have been through. So everybody has been affected by betrayal. Everybody has addiction, but they've worked through it both personally and professionally. And so it helps us to, I think, relate to people that come in because we kind of get it. And it also helps us to kind of keep the relationship and the individuals in mind at the time. So
yeah, and if you want to learn more about kind of how we understand relationship and do relationship, we wrote a book, Building True Intimacy, where we talk about all the different layers of building up to intimacy and experiencing that passion, that purpose, and that play in your relationship.
That's your pyramid. That's the pyramid thing. Yeah,
Yep.
Very cool. Well, I'm sure glad to talk to you. I'm grateful to be able to pick your brains for a little while. I think people will really benefit from getting some new perspective. This betrayal thing is so scary for people because they feel alone. And, I would imagine part of what you've learned is that this thing, particularly pornography, is much more ubiquitous than you think it is when you're just kind of privately in your own solo journey and you're like, I must be the only one. But, I think the more you get to tell your story and put it out in front of people, the more it normalizes not just the problem, but the pathway. Look at that, the pathway back to something like health and connection and intimacy. So thank you again for coming on and for sharing a little bit about that and letting us pick your brains for a little while.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you, Matthew and Joanna. You can find them on the internet. Raabsmith has 2 A's, Raabsmith. They've written a book. They are working with couples who are dealing with sexual addiction and betrayal. I love that they have people on their team who have been through it. So I encourage you to check them out if that's your jam. If you're just looking for something a little more broad, I would invite you to the Fierce Intimacy Retreat with me and one of my mentors, Julie Rudiger. It's going to be just outside of Philadelphia on November 8th and 9th, so it's coming up. You can shoot me an email. I'll get you details about that. But for now, thank you for the time and attention you're putting into making your relationship better today than it was yesterday.